messages versus you messages. What is an I message? Why do they matter? And how can they actually help us in difficult conversations, conflict resolution, and navigating those really tough situations that we deal with in work? Let's talk about the power of I versus you statements. What often happens in communication is people present their message using a you message, a you statement. These cause people to feel blamed, judged, triggered, attacked, centered out, and labeled. And that leads to a whole other number of ways that the conversation goes sideways quickly. The purpose of using I messages is that, first of all, it can help you frame and communicate your concerns, your feelings, your perspectives, your needs and expectations in a way that does not sound judgy, blamey, or accusatory. It doesn't sound threatening or demanding. The I messages also help you share the perspective and get your points across in a very clear way without causing the listener, the person you're speaking to zone you out, to tune out, disengage, or shut down completely. Another way that I messages are helpful is that they can actually reduce the emotional volatility that can happen in hard conversations. They support kind and clear communication. And Brene Brown says, clear is kind. Essentially, I messages say, this is how I'm seeing things from my perspective. Or an I message is not about being polite necessarily. It's about being clear and about reducing the defensiveness and the reactionary responses that we see through taking ownership for how we see situations or how we are being impacted. Let's look at I messages and you messages. I'm going to start with you messages that sound like this all the time. You never listen to me or take my ideas seriously. You never get your monthly reporting in on time. It's always a last minute dash in a crisis. You always overreact when someone questions you about our policy and our processes. You never take responsibility when you make a mistake. Now, these were not directed at you. These are simply examples of you messages that we hear in conversation. But you listening to these might have made you feel a little that I was being edgy. You might have felt a little rattled by what I was saying. You messages sound accusatory. They sound blaming and judgy. And I message is a little different. And I message is something like, I feel really supported when you listen to my ideas and perspectives. That's very different than you never listen to me or take my ideas seriously. I really feel supported when you listen to my ideas and perspectives. Notice that slight but important difference. How about this one? I feel challenged that your last two reports were submitted late. And my report actually includes elements of your report, so that put a big rush on me to finish. So that's very different than you never get your reports in on time. It's always a last minute dash. I messages really talk about how something is impacting you instead of blaming someone else. It's important to know that sometimes people use I messages incorrectly. I call them I messages gone sideways. Something like, sir, I think you better take your seat and lower your voice is not really an I message. It's more of a directive or a demand that happens to start with the word I. Another example, bit of a warning here, is don't word it like this. I feel that you are always late with your report. Yes, it begins with an I, but again, it's really a you statement that you're saying. It's overgeneralizing the other person's behavior. Two words that we often hear with you messages are you never and you always. Two words to really think about before you use them in your communications. I messages have a formula, and this one is quite simple. I feel, and then you express the feeling. When you or when this happens, you're describing the behavior or what happens. because, and explain the impact of the behavior or what happened on you. I messages describe the event or the situations that you have feelings about or that you're concerned about. They clearly communicate how you feel about what's going on, that situation or the event. They suggest what you'd like to see happen instead, what the alternative is, what would be more helpful. And they clearly communicate the natural consequence or outcome if things aren't addressed. One of the formulas we use for that, this is an expanded iMessage formula, and it's called the WIN method, W-I-N-N. We also use this a lot in setting boundaries in our relationships and in our communications. This formula starts with when, and then you explain what happened or the event or the situation. I, and you can use the word feel, noticed, observed, find myself being. You're going to fill in that blank. N is for need. What is it that you need? What is it that would be helpful? And then the other N is the natural outcome. What will happen if the boundary is not respected? This is an example of what that looks like in communication form. When you come to me at the last minute, I feel really torn. I want to be able to help you, but sometimes I can't work with the timelines that you're giving me. I feel that more notice would be able to allow me to support you. And if I don't get the appropriate notice, then I can't book in time to support you. That's the natural outcome. So think clearly and carefully about your messaging. Are there times when you're communicating with others that you could replace the you message with an I message to have more impact, more clarity, and to keep the conversation on track?